So I welcome again to all the participants and our distinguished speaker, Dr. Divya Bhabha Pradhan, for the day two session two. So I'll just introduce Sir to all of you. Sir is working as scientist too in bioinformatics at ICMR Ames Computational Genomics Center, Indian Council of Medical Research, New Delhi. He did his MSc and PhD in bioinformatics, and he has a total experience of around 13 years. He is working in areas like clinical genomics, database development, and computer-aided drug designing. He has total around 55 publications in reputed journals. He had gone with PhD guidance and had gone with several paper presentations in faculty development programs, workshops, conferences, and seminars. So he is also going taking various projects and co-investigator of around 20 extramural projects. So he had developed pipelines on clinical genomics for detecting pathogenic variants as per ACMG guidelines, clinical decision support systems based on histopathology images. There are a lot of professional recognition, awards, and fellowships which Sir had received, like the Best Poster Award, Silver Jubilee Symposium on Bioinformatics from BTIS-NET DBT, Association of Biotechnology and Pharmacy Junior Scientist Award from Association of Biotechnology and Pharmacy, Andhra Pradesh, then International Travel Fellowship from DBT Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India. So today, Sir will be delivering his talk on bioinformatics techniques for computer-aided drug designing. So I request Sir to please start his talk.
So thanks, Dr. Roma, and thanks, Dr. Garima, for providing such an opportunity to present a lecture in the workshop. So without wasting time, I would be sharing my slides. Okay. I hope my screen is visible. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I will be giving a lecture on bioinformatics techniques for computer-aided drug designing. Coming to computer-aided drug designing, what is it actually? So basically, previously in traditional approach, generally we used to find out, say, for example, some bioactive molecules, and we used to test whether the molecule is active against particular disease or not. Okay, but with the advent of computational technology and advent of different drug designing softwares and algorithms, the drug designing traditional method of drug designing has changed its had made a paradigm shift towards computer drug designing approach, where if I'll classify the drug designing, we will classify the drug designing methods. So we can briefly classify them as target identification, target validation, lead identification, and lead optimization. Having said that, there will be specific conditions when we are designing a drug molecule. So it might happen that, so what is the basic difference between traditional method of drug designing and computer-aided drug design? In general, in traditional method, you are having a bioactive compounds and you expect that that particular compound to act against a specific disease. But in case of computer-aided drug designing, basically we would be more precise towards the target. What is the target? Target is basically a protein structure, or target is basically a protein, okay, where we believe that protein is involved in the mechanism of the disease process. Okay, so there might be several conditions like there might be conditions like you will be having known protein structure, okay, and known ligand. In that case, you can go for, because you know the ligand, you know the protein structure, you can simply go for structure based designing approach, or where you can follow protein ligand docking. I would be explaining what is docking and all those things in my corresponding slides, but here's just I'm giving a brief introduction on what are the conditions you are likely to face during drug designing protocol. Okay, now there will be condition when you might be having known protein structure but you don't have any ligand. At that point of time, you can go for de novo design. De novo design means basically you know the structure, then like in this case you can see here, the structure is known, The cavity is known, but the ligand is not known. In that case, what you can do, you can take a million of ligand compounds and you can try to fix inside the cleft. Okay, the whichever compound is going to give better result, that molecule are likely to act better against a particular disease. There might be another conditions where you don't have the known structure, but you have known ligands. Like for example, you have bioactive compounds associated with certain diseases from experimental data. At that point of time, what you can do, you can go for, like, you can take one or more ligands and you can perform similarity searching. If you are having several ligands, then you can go for pharmacophore searching. All these techniques I am going to explain in my lecture. Pharmacophore searching, then quantitative structure activity relationship. So basically, when you don't have a protein target, known protein target, but you know the ligand, okay, which is acting against a particular disease, then you can go for ligand based drug design. But the case where you don't have a known target or known ligand, then computer drug designing may not be useful. Basically, you need to start, you should have some experimental information or experimental data of some sort to start with computer drug designing. So if I can read this slide, so there are 4 steps for drug designing, that is target identification, target validation, lead identification, lead optimization. Then if the drug target is known, exact drug target is known, then you can go for virtual screening or molecular docking to identify the lead molecule. And when the exact drug target is not known, but the ligand is known, then you can just go for searching for active compounds, lead identification, lead optimization. Now, having said that, what is a drug target? Okay, so the first step is target identification. Now, let's try to understand what is a drug target is all about. A drug target is usually a protein. It is not necessary that it will be a protein. Okay, it is usually a protein. Okay, so for infectious disease, if I'll define a drug target is essential for pathogen survival, but absent in host. Okay, and for non-communicable, like for example, if I'm telling, like, so a bacteria per se, take MTB. Okay, if I want to identify a potential drug target against MTB, then I should find a protein of MTB which is essential for survival of MTB but absent in host. Why? A drug target is a protein for which we have to design a drug molecule. It means, so for example, if that drug target is essential for the pathogen, if I design a drug molecule, then it will kill the pathogen because it is essential for pathogen survival. If I'll block that protein, then basically the organism will die, MTB will die. And then what I'm telling, it should be absent in host. Why? Because if I'm designing a drug molecule against a target and it is specific for bacteria and also present in host, then it will lead to side effects because it will also block the processes of host like human. If the same drug molecule will block protein expression inside the human also, right? So for that reason, we should be taking proteins which are specific to the pathogen and it is essential for pathogen survival and absent in host. So for infectious disease, basically a drug target is a protein, usually a protein, which is essential for pathogen survival and absent in host. But for non-communicable disease, it might be an overexpressed or down-regulated gene that is linked to cause of disease or its progression. Okay, so for example, now we are having, we got a protein which is overexpressed in disease individual and it is not showing any impact, like it is expressing at its normal state or normal range in a normal individual. Then what happens if a particular protein is getting overexpressed or downregulated in disease state? We assume that that particular protein might be having a role in the disease mechanism. So that's why that particular protein might be a drug target. I'm not telling that is definitely a drug target. Okay. Of course, I'll be telling you that how to ensure a protein is a drug target or not, for both for infectious disease and for non-communicable disease in my next slides. So once you have identified whether you are working on an infectious disease or non-communicable disease, once you've identified potential drug targets, then you can in fact design targeted therapies, okay, which can render effective treatment to patients and avoid interacting with off targets. Like if if you are designing a drug molecule against a specific drug target, it is more likely that it will bind to the particular drug target only. It will not bind to the other proteins of the human. Okay. So then what happens? So basically, it will reduce the unwanted adverse drug reactions. Okay. And binding of then how you will evaluate this computationally? You can evaluate computationally by evaluating the binding affinity of ligands to the target through molecular docking or rational or target based drug designing. Now, you must be, some of you must be aware of next generation sequencing. Most of you must be aware of that. So next generation sequencing is a technique where you are not going to look at single protein or one gene, something like that. Here you are going to look at all the genes present in human or present in a pathogen and its impact in different disease state, so that you can identify basically drug targets from whole genome or whole proteome or whole transcriptome. Okay. So as you know, in last 5 year or 10 year, you can see the NGS technology is at its boom. Okay. So you can actually collect the whole genome or whole genome, then you can use massive parallel sequencing to identify the complete genome architecture or complete transcriptome architecture of an organism. For example, let's say humans. So there the RNA-seq technique can effectively be used to identify potential drug targets. How it can be, I'll be discussing again in future slides. Now you can see here, now if you are having NGS data, then there might be data of kind genomics data, where you can go for whole genome sequencing, whole exome sequencing, and you can identify point mutations, small indels, copy number variations, and structural variations from whole genome and whole exome data to identify functional effect of mutations. Okay. And you can correlate this functional effect of mutation to the gene expression. Okay. Now, directly also, you can identify gene expression in different state like disease state and normal state by through microarray technology or transcriptomics through RNA-seq technology, where you can identify differentially expressed gene in various experimental conditions like disease state and normal state. Okay. You can identify fusion genes, you can identify fuse genes, alternate slicing event, and RNA editing also. RNA editing events also you can notice. So once you have differential expressed genes, you can perform network analysis, pathway analysis, and you can correlate with functional effect of mutation and perform integrative analysis with the epigenomic data set also to identify potential drug targets. So once you know the drug target, once you know the particular mutation state in the drug target, you can actually go for precision medicine. Now, what happens sometimes you might be having your own experimental data, or sometimes you may not be having your own experimental data. Like bioinformaticians like me, generally don't have my own experimental data. Despite that, I can do research on any disease. Why? Because over the like throughout the world, okay, whoever does research in using NGS technology or drug designing. So, for example, in different conditions, if they are doing transcriptome analysis through microarray or NGS technology, they do deposit their data at NCBI Sequence Read Archive, DDBJ Sequence Read Archive, or the European Nucleotide Archive, or even the NCBI Gene Expression Omnibus. So these are the databases basically which you can use to identify potential drug targets by taking the RNA-seq data into consideration for a specific disease. Like there will be very much interactive search box where you can give the disease name, and in fact you can get all kind of data, all kind of whole transcriptome data existing at the European Nucleotide Archive or NCBI SRA, and you can do whole transcriptome profiling data analysis by using several softwares to identify potential drug targets. Now, this is an example of identification of potential drug targets in a disease called psoriasis. You can see here, there are comparisons, mild psoriasis versus normal. Okay, this is open source database data set we have taken in our lab to identify you can identify potent transcripts, those are differential expressed. Okay, you can see the green color dots are basically differential expressed transcripts. Those are having a fold change of twofold change, which is like, for example, if normal state, the expression is 1, then in disease state, it is expression is more than twofold, means two times. Okay. So right side is the upregulated transcript, left side it is shown downregulated transcript. Similarly, there is a comparison between severe psoriasis versus normal patients, where you can see that there are certain genes which are or transcripts which are upregulated. Those are shown in right side, and downregulated, those are shown in left side. Overall, I could we have noticed that there are 194 genes uniquely overexpressed in mild psoriasis, while 2,813 genes which are uniquely expressed in severe psoriasis with respect to normal. In that case, you can see that these are the genes actually out of, so for example, let's consider we are having a gene of around 30,000. Then out of that, approximately 2,000, 3,000 genes are differentially expressed in the disease condition. And 2,813 genes are actually differential, uniquely differential expressed in severe psoriasis condition. Okay, let's remember psoriasis is a disease of skin and there is no cure available for that. So if we are trying to design drug molecule, we have to focus on these 2,813 genes. Okay, now then it is pretty difficult to design drug molecule for 2,813 genes. I need to identify at least 5 or 10 genes or 15 genes. Those are important for which we can design drug molecule. So for that, I need to do several other downstream analysis. So the downstream analysis can be like those genes are highly expressed. Okay, one of the protocol I can follow is those genes are highly expressed. Now here you can see that this is the mild psoriasis groups and this is the severe psoriasis groups. These are the normal groups. Okay, you can see these particular set of genes, and you can see this red color indicates that when you are coming towards red, it is overexpression. So you can see that in severe psoriasis, these genes are overexpressed, but there is no distinguish. It means here also in normal skin also, these are overexpressed. So it may not be of any use. But if you will see here, these genes, you can see that these genes are also having, these genes are not following same pattern. Okay. In normal case, they are downregulated, while at severe and mild psoriasis case, they are following a different pattern. Here in this case also you can follow. These are the genes where you can see the S100A12. This gene is upregulated in mild and severe psoriasis, while it is downregulated in normal skin. So if this particular gene is upregulated, if I will design a drug molecule by targeting this gene, which will downregulate this, then the psoriasis skin will come back to the normal state. That is the overall logic. Okay. So this is one way of doing it, by looking at the top upregulated and top downregulated genes. But top genes always may not be the major genes. They may not be the cause of the disease. They might be the effect of the disease also. So to identify cause of the disease, and effect of the disease cannot be drug target. Rather, the cause of the disease would be a drug target. So to identify cause of the disease, you need to do pathway analysis and gene ontology enrichment and network analysis. Okay. So this is the slide I have shown again how top dysregulated genes separates mild psoriasis, severe psoriasis, and normal states. Okay. But having said that, as I told you that top genes may not be always cause of the disease. For that reason, you need to do pathway analysis. So when I have performed the pathway analysis for this 2,800 or something 3,000 genes, then we have noticed that these are the pathways which are getting populated or enriched. Now the next step should be correlating these pathways with respect to the disease of our interest. Now you can see that psoriasis it is an autoimmune disease, and you can see rheumatoid arthritis. These particular genes are getting already enriched. So these genes, the genes getting enriched in rheumatoid arthritis, might be of interest to design drug molecule, or might be of interest as drug target for designing drug molecules. Okay. So of course there might be several ways to look at the data. Okay, you need to actually look at each pathway individually to identify potential drug targets. Another way of, as I told you, another way of doing it is gene ontology enrichment and network analysis. So these are the two examples I have given where we have identified hop genes using network analysis. So these are the, like, from 3,000 genes, we have shortlisted around 10 genes, 20 genes for as potential drug targets for rational drug designing. and this paper in fact published in International Journal of Molecular Medicine, where we have reported these are the genes which are Hop genes actually for rational drug designing. Now, having said that, if you are working in a disease like cancer, psoriasis, or any diabetes or any disease which is not due to infectious agent, you can follow this protocol that you can integrate genomics, transcriptomics, and annotations to find out potential drug targets. Now, for example, you are working on a pathogen. Okay, you are working on Leptospira interrogans, you are working on MTB, you are working on Klebsiella pneumonia, or any disease. Then how to identify potential drug targets? As already I have mentioned, you have to identify drug targets, or you have to identify proteins which is essential for the pathogen and absent in host. Okay, for that we have developed a software called TID. That is basically this software you can use to identify potential drug target for the pathogen within 2 hours. You can install the software in your laptop, and you can download the whole proteome of an organism from NCBI, and you can just follow the protocol. This is the software's like standalone software's parameters. If you are an experienced user, you can follow all the steps: paralog analysis, essentiality analysis, which will give you the proteins which are essential for host, pathogen, and non-homology analysis. It will give you the proteins absent in host. Then you can go for target prioritization, where you can do pathway analysis. You can do pathway analysis, network analysis, protein-protein interaction analysis to shortlist the drug targets for pathogen. If you are not an experienced user, if you are a newcomer like a biotech student or bioinformatics student, you can also go for single-click target mining. Here the protocol is standardized. Just you have to upload the protein file list. Then it will tell you whether it is a drug target or not, and also it will tell you whether it is, like, if you are designing a drug molecule, it is not only targeting host proteins, it is also targeting the gut microbes. So what you need to do, also we should find the drug target which is absent in gut microbes. So this software actually does target prioritization through gut flora non-homology also. It will also tell that whether they are already having drugs or not. For those drug targets, already drugs are available or not. And also it will do virulent factor analysis. Okay, so the single click workflow basically can be used to identify drug targets from the whole proteome within 2 hours. Okay, so in case you are having any doubts, you can also keep on writing me in the chat box, okay, on the process. Okay, please don't hesitate to ask me any doubts in case you are having in the chat box, or you can stop me also, okay, in the middle of my lecture. Okay, so basically this single click target mining can help you in identifying potential drug targets within 2 hours. Now this paper published in 2017, and it was actually basically for mining potential drug targets for bacteria. Subsequently, we have used this software to publish many articles. In fact, for many pathogens like Leptospira interrogans, recently published in PLOS One, and also we have published few articles in microbial pathogenesis, and many other articles we have used. Okay, so basically it takes only 2 hours. You can just if a bacterial proteome is having around say for example 5,000 proteins, like you can see, then it will just give you the results within 2 hours. Of course, you have to validate that through network analysis and pathway enrichment all. Okay, and of course, and also we have validated this pathway, this software, by using published literature, and we have got good correlation, like people published using same protocol. We have evaluated that. If you will go through this paper, in fact, you can find that there are 3 articles with which we have compared that how our software actually correlates with the previous finding by several researchers. Okay, now the procedure we have discussed is target identification. Now once a target is identified, what is next? The next thing for target identification is to identify a molecule which will fit to the target. Okay, now for example, you are saying a protein is overexpressed in disease condition. Now you would like to block that protein to bring it to its normal state. Or if you're saying a protein is responsible for survival of the pathogen, then you have to block the function of that protein such that the pathogen will die. So either way, you have to find out a molecule which will fit to the protein's cavity, functional or functional site, that will block function of that particular protein such that either the pathogen will die, or if it is a non-communicable disease, then the proteins protein will get modulated such that the disease of interest will not will get the disease can be modulated. Okay, so it is basically the target and drugs follows the protocol of lock and key theory. Okay, most of the drugs fit well to their target. So the study of crystals, as you know, that the protein structures are being studied through protein crystallization or NMR steps, right? So NMR technology. So the study of protein crystals gives details of the log, that is the protein. And knowing the log, if you know the protein, then protein structure, you can design some keys. Okay. So this fitting of the protein and target and ligand, once you have identified the target, once you have validated the target, of course, target validation require again computationally also you can validate the target. I have not included here, but you can, in fact, there are models. You can do in silico gene knockout. Okay, there are metabolomics procedures. You can do in silico gene knockout to actually see the function of the protein and validate the drug target. Okay, my lecture will be basically explaining you what is basically, it will be explaining you how you can achieve drug designing through computer aided drug designing methods. Okay, so that is the goal. So I'm trying to tell you that of course there are experimental method of gene knockout, but in silico also you can do gene knockout to validate the target. Okay, now as I have told that once you have identified the target, next thing is that to find out a molecule that will fit better to the target. Okay, there are computer algorithms, there are molecular docking algorithms, basically helps in identifying lead molecule or ligand molecule or a compound that fits to the protein. Okay, that is what nothing but molecular docking. Okay, so this is called protein ligand docking or protein docking. Okay, so basically, say for example, if this is my protein structure, this is my log structure. Okay, then I have to find an algorithm to check that which key is or which ligand is fitting best. Okay, now what happens when you are identifying potential drug targets? Most often, okay, most often you will find that structure is present at the protein data bank, but often protein structures may not be existing in the protein data bank. At that point of time, what you should be doing? You need to do what you need to do. You need to actually model the protein structure. Protein structure can be modeled through three methods. One is either homology modeling, another is threading or fold recognition method, another is ab initio method. Out of all the three approaches, it is homology modeling which is widely used, mainly because homology modeling depends upon a similar structure. Okay, you are designing the structure based on a known or similar structure. Okay, that's why it is more likely to have give a better result compared to the ab initio method and fold recognition method. So when to use homology modeling? When you have a crystal structure, corresponding crystal structure with at least 30% identity or 50% similarity to the your drug target of interest. Say for example, this is your drug target. You have compared with protein data bank structures through blast search. Okay, then if you are finding a structure which is having at least 30% identity, more than 70% of the query coverage, okay, and similarity is at least more than 50%, then you can go for target template alignment, and you can use softwares like Modeler to go for homology modeling. Okay, and in fact, there are several parameters to decide if, for example, for a protein you got say hundreds of templates, which template to select. I would suggest take the template which is having higher identity and lower p-value, e-value, and better query coverage. And if the protein is having a ligand, crystal structure is having a ligand incorporated with it, then it is even better. And of course, don't forget about the resolution of the crystal structure. Resolution of the crystal structure should be less than 2.5 angstrom. Okay, of course, you can take higher than that, but I would always suggest that take a crystal structure which is having the resolution of high resolution, which is less than 2.5 angstrom. Okay. After that, you can use the software like Modeler for homology modeling. Once you have developed model, next thing is to check whether the model is good one or not. So for that reason, you need to go for model validation steps, where you can go for GA341, where it will tell you that is the what is the fold accuracy. So GA341 score equal to 1 is always considered as it is the fold predictions are correct. Dope score, lower the dope score, it is an energy score, lower the dope score, better is the result. You should always compare dope score of model with dope score of the crystal structure. Okay, the protein which is having more closer dope score to the crystal structure should be considered. You can evaluate the protein through Ramachandran plot, that is through ProCheck, and there are all other energetic parameters like ProSA, ProQ, and Superpose. Superpose is a command again in Modeler where you can check the root mean square deviation, the structure's root mean square deviation with respect to the crystal structure. Okay, the structure which is having root mean square deviation, lower root mean square deviation with respect to the crystal structure should be preferred. Okay, so in fact, we have generated several models for different drop targets using homology modeling. This is an example of homology modeling for MODI. Okay, in complex with its natural substrate. And here we have taken one chain. Okay, and we have incorporated the ligand during modeling so that I can know the active site. This is an example of homology model of GMHA, another protein with 7sp. This is a natural substrate again. Okay, but here you can see there are 4 chains we have modeled. You can model the tertiary structure of the protein also in Modeler. That is what quite interesting. And this work is published in Genomics Proteomics Bioinformatics. The journal is having an impact of 7.7, impact of more than 7. Okay, so basically, what I would say, you can use modeling technique to model the tertiary structure. In fact, all the chains, multiple chains, you can incorporate the ligand from the crystal structure during modeling also. Okay, so now you know the target. Now you know the target structure. In case target structure is not known, you have modeled the target structure. Now your key is ready. Your drop target is ready for docking. Okay, now you can explore the active site to identify potential key or potential drug molecules through computer techniques. So now the next important aspect is to determine the active site or functionally important site of the target. Okay, as I have told here, now what you have done, you have modeled the structure by incorporating the ligand. It means you can identify the active site. Okay, active site is right now known to you. Okay, so if the target structure in complex with ligand is known, then you can know the active site easily. You can see here, you can just simply visualize in a molecular visualization software like PyMol, and you can see here, these are the amino acids which are interacting with this ligand. Now you can easily do virtual screening from from millions of compounds from public repository. There are many databases, in fact, like you can go for PubChem, you can go for Gene database, you can go for Ligand Info database, you can go for like ChemPDB. There are many databases. Okay, and you can just dock all the databases, all the compounds to the protein using docking softwares to these active sites. Okay, but there are conditions where you may not be having a target structure in complex with ligand. Okay, at that point of time, you have to predict the binding pocket. Okay, so there are 2 softwares basically I would recommend, where you can use CAST-P or you can use Sitemap. In fact, both the softwares we have used in our work. Okay, so there what you can do, you can identify the binding pocket. Okay, and that binding pocket you can take it for molecular docking. But identifying binding pocket is not always easy. Right, like you can identify number of binding pockets, but what might happen, there might be several binding pockets. Which binding pocket you will be taking? Okay, so for that you need to source literature. Okay, and see whether any one residue is reported at least in literature that this is part of the binding pocket or this is part of the functional important site. Okay, and any binding pocket harboring that particular amino acid, you can take that as a consider that as a binding pocket. But if not, then take the largest binding pocket as the binding pocket for molecular docking. Okay, now coming to molecular docking, what is the idea behind molecular docking? The idea is, now your structure is ready, now your binding pocket is also ready. It means your drug target structure and binding pocket is ready. Now you have to find out molecules which is fitting. Now these are the molecules. Now, for example, this is your active site. Now, which molecule will fit? Definitely, this is the molecule which will fit, right? Out of all these molecules, this is the molecule which will fit. So, but then out of all this, you have to find out. Right now, I can see this, by seeing this, I can tell. But in chemical compound, it is not easy to tell that which compound will fit. Neither the active site is this much pretty easy. Active site geometry is not easy. So for that reason, you need to require a computer algorithm or computer software to do that. Okay. So now you are having, say for example, ligand databases like ChemBank, ChemPDB, KGZ ligand, NCI ligand, GmbH, Asinex, TimTech, Zinc. All these databases are open source. They are available. You can take all the ligand molecule. Now you are having active site, use a molecular docking software to identify the ligand. Okay. Now what is docking? In the process of docking, a ligand mimics the natural course of interaction with its receptor via a lowest energetic pathway. Okay. So basically what you need to do, put a compound in the approximate area where the binding occurs and evaluate the following questions. Do the molecule binds to each other? First question is that. Once you are taking all these molecule, database molecule, then you are placing them in the active site. Ask yourself the questions. Do the molecule bind to each other? How you will know that? It means the binding energy should be lesser. The binding energy should be negative. Okay. If yes, how strong is the binding? It means the lower the binding energy, better is the better interaction, or better is the affinity. Okay. Now how does the molecule, the protein ligand complex looks like? Like, so for example, once you know that okay, they are binding together, but whether the binding is correct, it's not that simply use a docking. Like sometimes our perception is that okay, there are softwares that feed the ligand, feed the protein, and it will give the result, it will give the docking energy. But don't go by that. That way we cannot design drug molecule. We need to look at the interactions, in fact. Okay. Whether the interactions are correct. If a side chain in the ligand molecule, for example, it is having electropositive group, then it should be complementary, it should be binding with the electronegative group in the protein. It should not be binding electropositive with electropositive. If electropositive group binds with electropositive group, then it is wrong, because there should be repulsion, there cannot be attraction. So it means docking program is predicting incorrectly. So that you need to inspect visually. So visual inspection should be there. Okay. Then finding the correctly oriented ligand and quantify the extent of binding. So these are the questions you need to ask once you are running molecular docking. Now, so this is basically the protein. There is a pocket, binding pocket I have shown here. This is the ligand. Now this is the complex, and this is how inside it is sitting, and you have to look at that how it is sitting. Okay. So the structure means using the protein structure and the computational method that mimics the binding of the ligand to a protein. Okay. Given the protein binding site ligand. Okay. And what it predicts, what protein ligand docking predicts? The pose of the molecule in the binding pocket. I don't know if some of you must have used the protein ligand docking methods. Okay. So what it does, it is basically, it will not give you a single pose. So it is not pretty easy to identify which pose is good. Okay, for a single ligand, it will give you multiple poses. So it will predict different poses of the molecule in the binding site. That's why it is important to visually inspect each pose, the binding affinity or a score representing the strength of the binding. So two things it will give. Molecular docking programs will give pose and score. So you have to identify which pose is important, which pose is favorable, and the extent of binding can be evaluated through a score. Okay. Now pose versus binding site, as I have already mentioned, there are two things: pose and binding site. What is binding site? Binding site is nothing but the active site, the part of the protein where the ligand binds, and generally it is a cavity on the protein surface. Okay, and it can be identified by looking at the crystal structure of the protein bound with a known inhibitor. Already I have discussed in my previous slide. Okay, and what is a pose? It is a geometry of the ligand in the binding site. Okay, what is the geometry means? Geometry means location, orientation, and conformation. It means we should have algorithms where we need to identify exact location, orientation, and conformation of the ligand inside the binding pocket or active site of the protein. Then only we can tell, oh yes, this particular molecule with this geometry, it can be a drug molecule. Okay, so protein ligand docking is not about just identifying the binding site. Rather, it is about identifying the exact geometry of ligand molecule, that is exact location, orientation and conformation of the ligand molecule inside the binding pocket of the drug target. Okay, so next, what are the uses of docking? So the main use of protein ligand docking are virtual screening, that is to identify potential lead compounds from a large data set. Okay, and post prediction. Large data set means, for example, we are having millions of compounds, so there are processes, there are molecular docking processes or virtual screening workflows. I'll be giving you some example going ahead. Okay, virtual screening workflows where you can identify potential lead compounds from large databases. Okay, now you can go for post prediction. If we know the exactly where and how a ligand known ligand binds, we can see which part of the protein, which part are important for binding. We can suggest changes to improve binding affinity, and we can avoid changes that will clash with the protein. Okay, we have to check, like say for example, you can see here there are hydrogen bonds where with the, this is the ligand, this is the protein, and these are the amino acids with which the ligand is binding. Okay, now what is virtual screening? Virtual screening is the computational or in silico analog of biological screening. Biological screening means, say for example, in experiment you are having say cell lines, cancer cell lines, and you are giving medicines. You are trying to check that which drug is working better. Similarly, in virtual screening method, you can actually take the protein, that exact target, and you can see that which compound is fitting better. So the aim is to score, rank, and filter a set of chemical structure using one or more computational procedure. So docking is just one way to do this. Okay, it can be used to help decide which compound to screen experimentally and which library to synthesize, which compound to purchase from an external company to analyze the result of an experiment such as high throughput sequencing run. Okay, high throughput screening run. Okay, so what are the components of docking software? Now after getting an idea on docking, now we must be knowing that what are the problems with docking, or what are the components required to design a docking software. So typically protein ligand docking software consists of two main components which works together. One is search algorithm, that is which generates a large number of poses of a molecule in the binding site. Okay, as I told that a compound, if you are giving for docking with a protein, it will generate multiple poses with its binding score. So that is done by the search algorithm. So what search algorithm does? It generates a large number of poses of a molecule in the binding site. Okay, next thing is that a scoring function which calculates a score or binding affinity for a particular pose. That will give, for every pose it will give me a binding score. Okay, so the pose of the molecule in the binding site and the binding affinity or a score representing strength of the binding. Okay, there are several software, there are several docking softwares, a large number of docking programs available. Okay, like Autodock, Dock, eHits, FlexX, Fred, Glide, Gold, LigandFit, QXT, Surflex Dock, among others. These are the some of the softwares I have named. Okay, all these softwares follows different scoring function, different source algorithm, and different approaches. Okay, different approaches. So the accurate 3D conformation of a protein and ligand, but remember that despite all the variability, accurate 3D conformation of a protein ligand is necessary to prior to docking. Therefore, one must prepare the protein, one must optimize the protein and ligand before docking. Otherwise, you just cannot say that yes, I am having protein, I am having ligand. Just I have done the docking software, but the compound I got didn't work in experiment. These are the most common questions I used to get often. That the docking we have performed, but that computational docking results are not giving appropriate result in experiment. It is mainly because it is not the fault of the docking software alone. It might be due to you have not prepared the protein properly, you have not prepared the ligand properly. Okay, or your conformation, or your after docking, you have to evaluate each pose of the ligand. You have to evaluate each pose of the ligand and look for their binding orientation, binding affinity. Okay, and it's not that only one docking program you should be using while virtual screening. Rather, you should use multiple docking program to see the results you are getting, the ligands you are getting, they are remaining same or not. Okay, so two, three components you need to look at. First thing is that your protein and ligand molecules should be prepared adequately before protein ligand docking, or they should be at their bioactive conformation, rather I would say. Okay, next thing is that choice of your docking software should be perfect, pinpoint. Now you don't go by my word or any paper's word that take this software for docking. You evaluate by taking some experimental compound, you evaluate which docking software performs better, okay, performs better with that your experimental data set. Then you use the docking method, okay. So now let's discuss about preparing, how to prepare a protein structure. A protein structure often contains water molecules, right? When you will download a crystal structure from the protein data bank, it often contains water molecules. In general, all water molecules need to be removed, except where it is known that the water molecule plays a important role in coordination to the ligand or in binding with the ligand. Okay, otherwise you need to remove all the water molecules. Just you cannot take all the water molecules for docking. Okay, it will increase complexity. Okay, so you need to remove all the water molecules and only keep those water molecules which are likely to playing a role with the ligand molecule. In general, when we are preparing protein, we used to keep water molecules within 5 angstrom of the ligand molecule. Okay, now PDB structure might be having missing hydrogens. Okay, many docking programs require protein to have explicit hydrogens. So in general, these can be added unambiguously except in the case of acidic and basic side chains. Okay, an incorrect assignment of protonation states in the active site will give poor result. Glutamate aspartate have COO minus or COOH, whereas OH is a hydrogen bond donor, O minus is not. So you need to decide which one you need to take, which functional group you should be having. Okay. Then similarly, histidine is a base and its neutral form has 2 tautomers. Okay. So you need to take exact tautomers. Okay. So for a particular protein side chain, the PDB structure can be incorrect. So you need to correct the side chain also. So always also you need to remember crystallography gives you electron density map. It is not the complete molecular structure. From the electron density map, generally the core in if you have followed X-ray crystallography, from the electron density map, generally the core or backbone of the protein is drawn. After that, the side chains are being assigned. So side chain assignment may not be accurate. Okay, so you need to correct the side chain. So in poorly resolved crystal structure of protein, isoelectronic groups can make it difficult to deduce the correct structure. So basically what you need to do, you have to rectify all these problems I have discussed using molecular modeling software. You can use Prime, you can use Modeler to correct that. Okay. Similarly, you need to prepare the ligand. Okay. So once you have structure, you need to prepare the structure or drug target. Now you need to prepare the ligand data set also. So what is the ligand preparation? A reasonable 3D structure is required as a starting point. So during docking, the bond length, bond angles in the ligand are held fixed, but only the torsion angles are changed. Okay. So you need to correct the protonation state, tautomeric form of a particular ligand, which could influence the hydrogen bonding ability. Okay. So either protonate as expected for a physiological pH and or use the single tautomer, or you can generate all possible protonation or and tautomer states of a ligand and retain with one is having higher score for docking. So you can use the software like Liquid Confusion for ligand preparation. So there are this is some bit of algorithm behind the source space. So there are basically many degree of freedom to basically discuss the degree of freedom. There are degree of freedom like up and down. A ligand can go up and down, forward and backward, left and right. So all these combinations you need to think when you are designing a source algorithm. Okay. So now again the ligand conformation, you need to see a 3D conformation. What are the combination of that? There might be many rotatable bonds. Okay, you need to see that how many rotatable bonds are there, but then it too many rotatable, if a ligand molecule is having too many rotatable bonds, it might be very much difficult to design a ligand molecule. Okay, so now once you have protein and ligand ready, then you have to handle the protein and ligand conformation. So most docking software treat the protein as rigid. So rigid is basically they approximate the protein as rigid because protein is large molecule. If you will define complete protein as flexible, it will be very much difficult to go for docking. But often some of the software follows the active side. They define the active side as flexible, where the induced free docking, and there is a protocol called induced free docking with proteins or software where it is allowed. The flexibility is allowed. Of course, there are many softwares which allow flexibility in the active side. So basically this approximation, this rigid receptor approximation may be invalid for a particular protein ligand complex, as the protein may deform slightly to accommodate the different ligand, and protein side chains in the active sites may adopt different conformation. Okay, so these are the two things as I have already discussed. You need a source algorithm and a scoring function. Okay, so the perfect scoring, what is the perfect scoring function? It will accurately calculate the binding affinity, which will allow active to be identified in virtual state and able to rank the actives in terms of affinity. Basically, so for example, you are having compounds, active compounds, which are likely to, which are having biological activity to block function of a protein. Okay, if you have, for example, you from your experimental data, you have known active compounds. So a scoring function should identify or rank higher to the active compounds and rank lower to the inactive compounds. Okay, the score the poses of an active higher than the pose of an inactive, score the correct pose of active higher than the incorrect pose of the active. Okay, so the active is nothing but the molecule with biological activity. So what are the classes of scoring functions? There are several scoring functions. There are force field based scoring function where glide score, dock and autodock follows. Empirical scoring functions, chem score, PLP, glide, SP and XP. Okay, and knowledge based scoring functions where PMF and drop score and SP, these are the knowledge based scoring functions. So different softwares follow different scoring functions. Okay, and what is the pose accuracy? How you will evaluate a pose is accurate or not? So for example, given a set of actives, for example, you have a set of active compounds with known crystal structure poses, then you have to check whether they can be docked accurately or not. Okay, first of all, you need to check whether they are getting docked accurately or not. So the accuracy is measured by root mean square deviation compared to the known crystal structure. Okay, so here you can see that out of these three, if I'll ask you which compound actually docked better, my answer would be this, because this is docking better. Here you can see there are differences, and there are many much differences. Okay, so root mean square deviation should be, so this, how by seeing just I should not be telling, I need to calculate root mean square deviation. So the root mean square deviation should be less than 2.5 angstrom. Okay, in general, the best docking software predicts correct pose about 70% of the time. Okay, so but it must be noted that it is always easier to find correct pose when docking back into active of own crystal structure. Okay, so basically, after you are performing virtual screening, you need to assess the performance of the virtual screening through a term known as inner enrichment. So for that, you should have known actives and known inactives, that is called a decoy set. Okay, and dock all known actives, inactives and your identified drug molecules. Okay, and rank by each score. Ideally, all the actives should be at the top of the list. In practice, we are interested in any improvement over what is expected by chance. Okay, so if you are having active compounds, inactive compounds, and you have the drug target, your docking software should represent more actives present in the top ranked compounds, okay, than the inactives. That is called as enrichment actually. So typically, the researcher might test only resources to experimental test top 1% or 5% of the compound. So basically, you would like to see how much percentage of active compounds are present in 1%, top 1% of the listed compounds during a virtual screening. That is called as enrichment. Okay, so that is how you can actually evaluate performance of a virtual screening protocol. Now here is an example, okay, which I follow. Here you can see there are many docking softwares. Which one to select? Okay, what you can do? You don't go by any research paper or anything, but just I would suggest just you evaluate yourself. Now here you can see there are 6 docking methods used by taking crystal structure data. Okay, and it is observed that this particular method where it is use quantum polarized ligand docking with MMGBS scoring given 85% correlation or R square value of 0.85, okay, with the experimental data than any other method. Okay, this is simply rigid docking gives 62% accuracy, while it is quantum polarized, it is induced fit docking gives 72% accuracy, and quantum polarized ligand docking gives 76% accuracy. Remember, quantum polarized ligand docking is basically follows quantum mechanics. Okay, so that's why that is more accurate. But when you are implementing quantum polarized ligand docking along with MMGVSA energy based calculation, then the accuracy of docking prediction going towards 85%. So based on this, I would follow this particular docking protocol for my work. So similarly, you can evaluate which protocol works better for you. Now, in brief, if I'll tell you that what is virtual screening is all about, you are having a compounds database, you go for structure-based or ligand-based virtual screening. In structure-based virtual screening, you go for molecular docking and pharmacophore search. Ligand-based virtual screening, you go for pharmacophore searching or QSR. Okay, then you dock receptor and ligand and selection of compounds through evaluation. Through pharmacophore search or QSR, you find the active pharmacophoric features, then evaluate the compound. Okay, this is a case study that we have performed lead identification using GLIDE in way back in 2011. So where we have identified the drug targets of yellow fever virus as a potential drug target, and we have taken published flavivirus E proteins lead molecules PO2, DO3, and MO2, and we have identified 1171 compounds from the ligand info database. Then we have generated multiple conformation. As I told you, you have to do protein preparation and ligand preparation. Okay, we have prepared the protein and we have generated multiple conformation of the ligand using liquid. Okay, so out of 1171 structures, we have basically we have landed into 1686 conformations. Then we have filtered using ADME property, that is adsorption, disruption, okay, and then metabolism and excretion. Okay, these are the four properties generally we use to follow in a drug molecule. So we have filtered all our compounds, all our conformations by applying Lewin's rule of 5 and reactive filter. If any reactive functional group, for example, present in the compounds, then we have removed them. Then we have followed a protocol: GLIDE high throughput virtual screening, GLIDE standard precision docking, GLIDE extra precision docking. Then we have shortlisted 14 compounds, and through visual analysis we have kept 11 compounds, and those 11 compounds are validated based on PO2, DO3, and MO2 binding affinity because they're the known compounds. Okay, then we have reported 10 lead molecules which are listed here. Okay, so this is a case study for yellow fever virus potential lead molecules, what we have achieved through rational drug designing method or computer-aided drug designing method. Okay, similarly, these are two other examples for where we have identified potential inhibitors by using open source software. The software I have used, GLIDE, it is a commercial software. Basically, it comes with Maestro, Schrodinger software. But here we have used this software, Pyrax or Autodoc, and GLIDE also we have used. Okay, so target protein we have taken, that is TNF alpha and PDE4 inhibitors, and the TNF alpha is the target, drug target, PDE4B is the drug target. Then we have prepared the protein and we have identified analogs from Zinc database. It is again free. Docking of the analogs with target proteins. Then we have screened the analogs with docking score better than the known inhibitors, and we have evaluated the free binding energy. We have applied ADME and toxicity filter to proposed lead molecules. So these are the lead molecules. Okay, so basically this is the known compound and these are the proposed compound. You can see that all the proposed compounds are having better affinity and better ADME property compared to the known molecules, known TNF alpha inhibitors. So this is how you are going to actually propose molecules. Okay, this is the example of PDE4B inhibitor. Similar way we have proposed PDE4B inhibitors. Okay, now another thing is that when all the things I have discussed till now, they are in a static phase. But actually the proteins, they are not static pictures. They are not like a photocopy. They are actually dynamic. What is static? This is a static image and this is a dynamic image. Okay, so proteins are something saying like this inside our body. They are not like static. So the molecules we are proposing, we should be seeing at the dynamic phase also the molecular interactions remain same or not. because in static, the interaction, whatever interaction, whatever is the interaction, same interactions should be existing in the dynamic environment also. Otherwise, that interaction is of no meaning. So this dynamic environment can be evaluated through molecular dynamics simulation. Okay, where means where you can check whether the compound you are through molecular docking you have got, the interaction you have got, the same interaction existing or holds good in like dynamic state or not. Okay, so now you can see the, so you can check it through molecular dynamics simulation. So basically the strategies of protein ligand docking is identifying protein binding site ligand, then you go for complex, then what you need to see, you have to look at the geometry and chemistry also. You need to see if in your ligand is having a positive group, it should be correspond to the negative group, and if your ligand is having a negative group, it should be corresponding to the positive groups. So the normal equation of protein ligand binding is P plus L equal to PL, but the modified equation should be, it is P dash L dash. Okay. So in silico inhibitor design, if I'll summarize, these steps include identification of target protein, binding site analysis, get that lead molecule, then protein ligand docking. Okay. Protein ligand, perform protein ligand docking, then go for validation through molecular dynamic simulation that I have discussed, then Waterloo based validation. Okay. Now, as I have told you that you require molecular dynamic simulations to actually evaluate the interactions holds good or not. So what are the molecular dynamic steps? You have to prepare the system, then solvation, because in human, what is there? There are a aqueous environment. Okay, there is aqueous environment. It's not like the air environment, aqueous environment. There is specific temperature, body temperature. There is specific pressure. Okay, there is pressure, temperature, all those things you need to mimicry in a computational environment to check that. So you need to, there are ions, so solvation, ion, then energy minimization, you need to do temperature equilibration, pressure equilibration, then production dynamics you need to perform analysis. Okay, so this is again a case study where we have checked if the docking complex remains stable in system closer to physiological environmental condition using molecular dynamic simulation or not. So we have built a system with water model, ion to neutralize the system, salt concentration, and temperature of 300 Kelvin, and pressure 1 atmospheric pressure. The softwares you can use is GOMAX, Desmond, all are free softwares. One can use this. Okay. Now this is still now whatever I was telling was basically ligand structure based drug designing. If you are having a structure, then how you can design drug molecule through virtual screening. Okay. Now for example, you don't have protein structure, but you have a ligand framework. Like in this case, you know that morphine is a drug which is like basically having some sort of biological activity. It is analgesic activity it is having. Okay, now what is the core structure of morphine? This is the core structure of morphine. I can take this, keep this core structure constant, and I can add the other functional groups, okay, to design compounds. This is the way levofenol and metazocine drug was designed. Okay, so basically what you need to do, so if you have a compound, okay, then you can identify the core feature of the compound, then you can design drug molecule. But if similarly, if you have a receptor, okay, but you don't have a ligand, then you can identify the functional groups. You can see here functional groups you add, then you add a basic group here. This is a hydrogen bond acceptor, so donor group here. Then aromatic center, you can add an aromatic group here. Okay, then you can join them using linkers, and then you can design the drug molecule. So basically, here what I'm telling, if you can follow pharmacophore modeling like ligand based or receptor based, then you can design drug molecules. Okay, it is basically you can go for de novo drug designing. Okay, so now this is one example we have used in our study where we have generated energy based pharmacophores where we have developed 20 models from 42 crystal structures, and we have proposed 18 lead molecules. And the best leads were assessed through molecular dynamics simulations. These are the hypotheses. These are the 4 hypotheses based on which we have designed drug molecules. So this is the hypothesis listed here and where they are interacting. Okay. So then we have evaluated the proposed 10 lead molecules. This is for GSK3 beta protein. We have evaluated that, and and we have evaluated the ADME property to propose them as potential drug molecules. And this work has been published in a journal, and this can be also the detailed protocol can be observed here. Okay. Now another example, similar way, it is basically for BMX non-receptor tyrosine kinase. For this also we have used energy-based pharmacomodeling and to design lead molecule. Okay, so these are the lead molecules with interactions we have proposed. Of course, there is always a compound. You must have a compound which you can use for actually use that for positive control, okay, or negative control. Okay, so inactive compounds you can use as negative control, active compound you can use as positive control to propose lead molecules. Okay, there are many programs again available for pharma fourth generation. These are the softwares: Hip Hop, Hypogen, Hypodefine, Gaps, Discotech, okay, Galard, Ligand Scout, MOU, Phase, and JED. Okay, so all these softwares can be used for uh, pharma four based drug designing, and computer-aided drug designing is not only useful for ligand discovery, rather it is for antibody design also you can use. To me, antibodies are in other words known as biologics. Okay, if why they are used, for example, antibodies will be having better affinity towards the, or you can say that the they're immunity based drug molecules. Okay, so what happens if you will design an antibody for a particular disease, they are more likely to be specific, and also their binding affinity will be better compared to the small molecules. Okay, so you can use computer-aided technology for antibody design also. How you can use? You can get the antibody sequence. As you know that each epitope antibody, where the antibody binds at the epitope regions. Okay, antibody will be having a paratope region which will bind to the epitope region. So there will be interaction between paratope and epitope. So if you can design the paratope region appropriately, then the affinity of antibody will improve towards the antigen or the epitope region. So if you know that a specific protein behaves as a epitope and linked to autoimmune disease, then you can design an antibody to regulate the autoimmune disease. Okay, so how we can do that computationally? You get the antibody sequence, you get the antigen sequence, do antibody modeling, do antigen modeling, then you can do antigen antibody docking, then computational design you can perform to improve the binding affinity of the paratope region towards the epitope region. Then you can go for experimental validation, then you can identify lead antibodies. Okay, these are the successful examples of lead antibody identification. You can see that when this is a crystal structure, when in wild type the binding affinity is at 7 nanomolar range, but after computer aided antibody design you can find the binding affinity is at picomolar range. There is 10-fold improvements, affinity improvements, okay, after these changes in the paratope region. Okay, similarly you can see the second example, it is 4.4 nanomolar binding affinity before antibody design. After antibody design it is 30 picomolar. Again binding affinity improved 140 times after this modification to the paratope region. Similarly your binding affinity improved to 454 times, and your binding affinity improved to 14 times after all these modifications. So basically you need to design the paratope region, you need to mutate the paratope region in antibody computationally, then you can validate experimentally whether the structure holds good, such that you can get better affinity antibodies to act as a drug molecule, okay, or biologics. It is present and it is pretty costly. Biologics are being used for immediate treatment like autoimmune diseases like psoriasis. Okay, so this is an example which we have published actually in Interleukin 6, where we have designed the antibody. Okay, these are different sites where the paratope binds. Already these are the antibodies available for treatment, and we have designed the antibodies using, first we have performed epitope prediction, paratope prediction, protein-protein docking we have performed, then docking score and free energy calculation we have done, then computational design of theoretical antibodies through in silico metagenesis and paratope region of known antibody. Then we have selected the known monoclonal antibodies showing better binding affinities and free energy as compared to the reference. Then we propose the lead molecule. So basically it is having a lot of future, this antibody design. But the drawback here is that protein-protein docking algorithms are not as accurate as protein ligand docking algorithms. Okay, so you need to be careful while evaluating the protein-protein docking results. Okay, this is the result of our study, where we have actually, as I have told you, that you have to look at the RMSD also. You have to look at the, like, the wild type interaction. Now this is the mutated interaction. Okay, so the root mean square deviation should be less than 2.5 angstrom. In our cases, we have got root mean square deviation in all cases less than 2.5 angstrom. So all the three docking protocols can be used, and these are the modifications we have suggested to the olokizumab. This is the known antibody, and these are the mutations we have achieved. Okay, to propose monoclonal antibodies for interleukin 6. Okay, so this is the top antibodies pictures. This is the wild type picture, and the modifications were suggested here. Okay, this article is also published in 2016. Okay, so now next, along with antibody design, we can also do epitope design. Okay, but before going to that, so can we design drug molecule when we don't have any structure information? Yes, we can. We can do that through quantitative structure activity relationship. For that, you need to find out biological activity data of at least 50 compounds with IC50 values. You can go for geometry optimization and the alignment of all molecules, divide into active, moderately active, and inactive compounds, compute pharmacophores, computation of steric and electrostatic fields, and develop QSR models by dividing the data into training and test set. Then develop QSR model validation by evaluating correlation between actual activity and predicted activity. Then after that, you can perform virtual screening through quantitative structure activity, the activity relationship models with predicted biological activity. Okay, so this is how you will be just checking the favorable features, unfavorable features. Then you need to identify whether which functional group or which pharmacophores are actually linked to the biological activity, and based on that, you can design a molecule and you can propose. Okay, and another application is that like small molecule drug designing, antibody design, and QSR studies. Similarly, you can also go for peptide based drug design. This is another example recently published in 2021 by our group actually, where we have also designed the epitope. Okay, like paratope, only paratope region, not the complete antibody. Rather, we have designed drug molecule based on the paratope region, and we have modified the paratope, okay, as a peptide drug. Okay, and we have got that this peptide drug is binding better compared to the existing small molecules. So the peptide drug, instead of small molecule drugs, one can use the peptide based drugs also. But you need to check the peptides should not be getting degraded in the natural environment, because they are more prone to degradation. Okay. In addition to the drug designing, you can use molecular docking methods for immunoassay kit design also. Like in this example, we have recently developed. We are working on a problem to develop immunoassay kit development for pesticide detection. Okay, this is the example of pesticide. These pesticides are not actually immunogens, so we need to add some linkers to make them immunogens. Okay, so immunogens. Then based on that, you can actually design immunoassay kits. We have just published a review article how if one can use molecular modeling techniques, okay, with detailed protocols to design a immunoassay kits. Okay, so basically computer aided drug designing you can use for identifying potential lead molecules. Actually, you can use bioinformatics techniques. You can use for target identification by using with the advent of NGS technology, whether it is a pathogen or whether it is a non-communicable disease. You can use whole genome, whole transcriptome data to identify potential drug targets. And next, you can use again bioinformatics techniques like metabolomics and in silico gene knockout to validate your drug targets. Okay. After that, once you have identified the drug targets, you can either get the structures from the protein data bank, or you can model the structure by using bioinformatics techniques like modeler. Once you have prepared the structure, next problem is to identify the active site or functional site binding pocket. So functional binding pockets you can identify by using either, but you can use the prediction tools like CASP or sitemap, or you can also use you can also you can also use the known information from literature or the ligand complex information from literature also. Okay, so once you find out the active site, you can use the ligand data base for virtual screening. Then you can use a docking software or many docking software together to identify potential lead molecules. If you are having a small molecule, but you don't have a structure, you can go for pharmacophore-based drug designing or QSR-based drug designing. If you are working on an antibody-based drug designing, you can design the paratope region of the antibody to get a better antibody compared to the wild-type antibodies to go for computer-aided antibodies design. Also, you can take only the paratope region to go for peptide-based drug designing. Okay, all these things can be, and also you can use this technique, this protein like antigen antibody interaction to develop immunoassay kits for disease diagnosis. Okay, so all these things I have discussed today's lecture is to how you will utilize bioinformatics technology to identify potential lead molecules. Okay, whether it is an antibody, whether it is a peptide, whether it is a small molecule. So protein ligand docking is an essential tool for computational drug designing. Widely it is used nowadays in pharmaceutical companies. There are many success stories, many success stories. Okay, you can follow medicinal chemistry journal to find out many success stories. But remember, it is not a golden bullet. The perfect scoring function has yet to be found. The performance varies from target to target and the scoring function to scoring function. And you need to be careful when preparing both protein and ligand molecules. The more information you have, the better is your chance of getting a lead molecule will work better. Okay, so you can have targeted libraries, you can set off in-house docking constraint, filtering of Rogers constraint, seeding with known actives, comparing with known crystal poses, mapping with known inactives like decoy sets. Okay, to create better chances in identifying a lead molecules. And remember, drug discovery is a lengthy process. Okay, you must use computational technique to identify shortlist few compounds. Then of course you need to validate them in experiment. There is no shortcut, but it is computer-aided drug designing technique. In fact, making your drug discovery easier and easier basically, and it saves a lot of time, and a lot of money. Okay, so basically, I'm presently working at ICMRM's Computational Genomics Center. The major goal of the Genomics Center is to help in NGS data analysis. Of course, we also help in computer-aided drug designing techniques. In case you have any queries in future, you have any research work you would like to collaborate, you can always visit our website. This website, you can raise a request. Okay, and of course, our scientific team will be in touch with you to help you in your data analysis. So thank you. Thanks for joining. Okay, and thanks for your patience. And I would like to take any of your questions in case you have any questions.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really a very informative talk. And I would like the audience to please ask questions. You can put your question in the chat box. You can also unmute yourself and ask questions.
I have one query.
Yeah.
How we can determine accurate binding tools?
Yeah. Accurate binding tools, as I told you, that there is no shortcut for that. You must use multiple docking software. Okay. Binding site prediction tool or binding interaction tool, sir. Which one you want? Like, for example, there are two things. First thing is that binding pocket prediction tool. Binding pocket prediction tool can be, as much as information we are having, based on that we can get accuracy. So for example, we have information of previous crystal structure ligand, then simply visualize in PyMod. Okay, then you will get the interacting residues. For example, you don't have that information, then you can simply use any binding prediction tool like CAST-P or sitemap, as I have told. Okay, now you will get, say for example, 20 binding pockets. You will not get one. Out of 20, you must correlate them to the literature again, because you need some information. Or you can predict whether any binding pocket is from the domain region. There are many domain prediction tools are there. If you have protein sequence, you can find out the functional domains also, right? So you can just check functional domains, or you can do a multiple sequence alignment of those proteins to identify conjugate sites. Okay, if your binding pocket belongs to that conjugate site, then you can say accurately that, okay, this is the binding pocket you should be taking forward for virtual screening. Now, for example, you have active site. Now, the question is that which software you should be using for like predict accurately binding affinity. There are many softwares again. Okay, Now, what you need to do, you need to use you need to benchmark yourself. Of course, there are many papers of benchmarking, but I won't suggest to go by that because lab to lab, it changes. You need to take some existing experimental data from open source and install the softwares in your lab and evaluate which software is working better and which software is correlating better to the experimental data, then use the software. Of course, Autodoc is widely used in academic scenario, and one can use also Glide, like it is a commercial software. Generally, Glide you can use, okay? But my suggestion would be, please evaluate yourself, okay? Please benchmark yourself before proceeding for analysis.
Okay, another query related to this, how we can go for the pharmacophore mapping for the best one, which pharmacophore we can choose?
Yeah, so the thing is that now once you are having pharmacophore, then actually pharmacophore modeling you should compare. There are two things you need to compare. One is with QSR, or another thing is that you need to go for energy based pharmacophore mapping. So for example, you have got pharmacophores, okay? Now next thing is that you need to search 3D compound library, which compounds are matching with the pharmacophores. Next, you need to evaluate pharmacophores, the compounds matched to the pharmacophores, you need to evaluate them through molecular docking. Whichever pharmacophore based ligands were giving better binding affinity, you can go with those ligands. Okay, if you are going for like pharmacophore based approach and molecular docking approach. But if you don't know, you are not going for energy based pharmacophore design. Okay, you are going for quantitative structure activity relationship based pharmacophore design. Then you have to take the pharmacophore, you have to pick those molecules with your QSR model. And QSR models will be having a model. It is a model basically. It
Right,
gives
right.
an active score. It gives an active score. Once you are fitting your compounds to the QSR model, it will tell you that what is the active score. What is the active score? Okay. Higher the active score, better is the pharmacophore.
But in CD library, we will get the number of pharmacophore design. So how we can simulate the best one or particular high binding affinity according to the score?
Yeah, definitely according to score. Okay, according to score. But I'm always telling two things. Okay, when you are taking a pharmacophore, there will be pharmacophore features with some geometry. Okay,
Yeah.
first is SAP screening. That generally what happens, one need to do SAP based screening first, 3D SAP based screening. Okay, there is a mapping score will be there. First of all, there will be mapping score, pharmacophore matching score. Okay,
Yeah.
first of all, you need to find out which ligand is mapping perfectly the pharmacophore. Okay, then only pharmacophore, because there might be 10 pharmacophores. Okay,
Yes.
then all 10 pharmacophores will be having certain pharmacophore energies, right?
Yeah.
Okay, based on pharmacophore energy, you have shortlisted, for example, 5. Take those 5, do a database search again. Okay, take those top 5, do a database search again. Then based on database search, again based on matching score, step-based screening, how they are mapping. Of course, you can use the clustering algorithm also. Like there is a software called Canvas, you can use clustering also. Okay,
Right.
so by using clustering technique also, you can select the pharmacophores. Then after that, either you have to go through like docking, or you have to go through QSR or QSR model. Okay.
So for recognition, we have to do some manual, manual work
you, you
for.
must you must
Yes.
you must visualize everything,
Yeah.
because like see, software will if you are uploading anything in software, it will throw something. Okay,
Yeah.
so
It will give
ideally,
the output, but it will
yeah,
not teach.
yeah. So you need to see whether, for example, you are going for QSR model. For example, I'm telling, if you have followed one of my slides where there will be features, which features are leading to high activeness, and which features are leading to inactiveness. If
Right.
your pharmacophore is present in active regions, okay, then it is more likely to act better than the pharmacophore mapping the inactive region. It might be having higher score, higher active score, but most of the pharmacophoric features should be present in the active regions. Okay, even if a pharmacophore is having higher score, but if it is not mapping more to the active regions, or rather it is mapping to the inactive region, you should reject that. Okay, so lot of visualization you need to do. You need to do manual inspection. There is no shortcut to that, but you can do always those things to the top poses or top pharmacophore hypothesis. Okay, not for all 1 million or 1 lakh, something like that. Okay, you can look at top 10 poses or top 10 features, pharmacophore features, and you can evaluate. But visual inspection is must.
Okay.
Any further question?
Yes, Dr. Pradhan.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you for such a nice, wonderful talk and a lot of information. Could you please just mention about few software which you mentioned in your talk? First, that pathway analysis and network analysis. Second, you also talked about in silico gene knockouts methods.
Yes. Yeah.
So like how to do that one.
Okay. First thing to come to first question. You can, for pathway and network analysis. Okay. Coming to that, generally KEGG is generally used for pathway analysis. Okay. But I would suggest there is a website called David. Okay. David, you can use that for pathway analysis and gene ontology enrichment. But I don't do that because I'm a bioinformatician. So to bioinformatician, I would suggest you use our bioconductor package. There is a very good package called cluster profiler. Okay. So it will automatically, for example, you are having 3000 genes, automatically by running few commands, automatically it will predict the pathway and as well as gene ontology. Okay. Gene ontology, and it will shortlist the which genes are belongs to which pathway. Okay. So generally, I would recommend go with the cluster profiler or any bioconductor packages. Okay. Bioconductor packages are basically of R. Okay. If you are a programmer, if you are not a programmer, basically you need to go to David. Okay. And you can do pathway enrichment so that you can enrich your drug targets. Another thing you have asked is network analysis. I would suggest for network analysis, you go for protein-protein interaction using string database, but directly don't go to string database. I would suggest to use the software Cytoscape. This is a very good software. It is and it is open source. Okay. For all my work, generally I used to use Cytoscape. Okay. Of course, there are commercial softwares like IPA, Ingenuity Pathway Analysis software. Okay. But I would suggest there is nothing that you cannot do in Cytoscape. You can do everything in Cytoscape. Okay. So you can use Cytoscape and string plugin to do network analysis. Of course, there are bioconductor packages like WGCNA, which you can also use for co-expression matrix analysis. Okay. Coming to your next question which you spoke about in silico gene knockout. In silico gene knockout, you have to develop a model actually. You have to develop a metabolome model. Okay. For that, there are databases, biomodel database. There is a biomodel database. You can find out that models are available for many organisms, also for humans. Okay. Recon 2, the database name basically. Okay. So you can develop a model and you can do in silico gene knockout using MATLAB. Okay. You can use the Cobra toolbox. Okay. Cobra toolbox where you can do in silico gene knockout. Okay. To see whether like any enzyme. Okay. If you are telling that it is important, what it gives, it interacts with the substrate and it gives some metabolite, right? So if you will block that enzyme, if you are telling a compound is blocking the enzyme, so if you knock out that, what will happen? Basically, biomass of the organism should decrease. Okay. So in Cobra toolbox, you can actually see the biomass. You can compute the biomass. Okay. So that's what I believe I answered your first query. Okay. How we can do in silico gene knockout, and I think I have answered the question. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other questions, please?
Any more
Otherwise, I'll
questions?
go to the questions in chat box. Yeah, if you can ask me directly, that is better. Otherwise, I'll go to the chat box and I'll answer.
I'll just read the questions.
Yeah, please.
This you have taken, I guess. Can you name few free softwares for drug designing to start with?
Yeah, free software is basically I would suggest to use Autodoc. Okay, Autodoc is pretty widely used, and it is also it is a very good software. Okay, so generally it is a free software. You can use molecular and MD simulations. You can use GROMACS. For modeling, you can use Modeler. Okay.
Next question is how to determine accurate binding pose and what is a good binding affinity value?
Good binding affinity should be always, it should be correlating to the nanomolar range of expandable binding affinity. Okay, because what is a good binding affinity? Higher the binding affinity it is always better. But in drug designing, generally anything correlates with nanomolar range. That is IC50 value is at nanomolar range. It is a good candidate for drug designing. Okay. Now, how you will correlate nanomolar range? Please take some known compounds and evaluate their docking energy. Okay. Now, you see what docking energy of your software corresponding to the nanomolar range. Okay. So any compound is giving that much binding energy is always going to be good. Okay, so you need to do a homework for this. Okay, so there is no other answer for this. Basically, you need to do homework. Okay, you have to take some compounds which are having nanomolar range binding affinity and generate your own in-house data set and compare with your doping software.
What is the best software for pharmacophore mapping?
Best software, I can't say best software. Okay, again, benchmarking is a job a researcher has to do. Okay, there are many softwares. Now you have to take some known active compounds, known inactive compounds, and evaluate. For my experience, I can suggest one, but I am not supposed to suggest one. Okay, because any commercial software I should not recommend. Okay, but what I'm telling, basically, you can. I use FADS. I have used FADS. Okay, but you can use any of the pharmacophore mapping software and benchmark yourself here. Okay, use multiple pharmacophore modeling software and take some known data set, active data set, and decoy data set and evaluate yourself. But you can use FADS.
Okay. Anyone wants to ask any more question? I guess we can just continue with the vote of thanks. Garima, please, can you just extend vote of thanks to sir?
Surely. On behalf of Department of Biotechnology, I would like to thank you, sir, for such a wonderful session, which was full of interaction and information. It is always good to listen to people who are working real time in such areas, sir. I'm sure participants have also gained a lot from this, as I have. So once again, sir, thank you very much for accepting my invitation at such a short notice. It was really good to listen to you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you once again, sir, and thank you participants for joining the session. Now we'll continue with the third session that will be by Dr. Gaurav, and it will start at around 2:30 p.m. So I'll be ending the session now. You can put your attendance in the Google form. I had shared the same in the WhatsApp group as well. And then we'll join again. We'll come back again at 2:30 p.m. Thank you all.